The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Hello, welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Friday in the Riv.
End of the week.
The end of the week with all kinds of things popping.
And we may be, you may hear some loud noise shortly. We're in the middle of a disaster drill type of situation. And we're trying our best to do this. That's why we started our taping a little late. And I'll tell you now, we're going to be on a widescreen shot for a little while. Unless the disaster drill happens earlier, but it's going to be interesting to see. So just a warning. So if you hear a lot of noise or a big siren, don't worry about it. We're gonna get through this one way or the other.
Don't worry about it. It's only the government trying to figure out how to do something right. Don't worry. So that segued us into some stuff we've got, huh? We're hearing rumors of a reorganization in the city of Fall River. Reorganization. That's code in government for let's see how we can justify more pay raises and tailor jobs for our friends.
Yeah, and you know, we had already heard a rumor of somebody coming here to the city from New Bedford.
Yep.
Somebody who used to work in Fall River before. So is this part of this reorganization? Maybe.
Who can tell, CJ? Because listen, we were around when they did the reorganization of Fall River under the Carlton Tavares administration.
Right.
This is what, and the irony is that we saw what that accomplished. What that fundamentally accomplished was nothing that was beneficial to the public. No streamlining, because when government reorganizes, it means they're going to create conditions that help them and their friends and create jobs for their friends. When private industry reorganizes, it's to do more with less and maximize their profits. See, there's no profit incentive in government. The incentive is to get as many people jobs and give them as much money as you can that are politically connected, because that's what government does.
Make sure your friends' pockets align.
Exactly, and I'll go over a little bit of it because I do remember that vividly, because they actually hired a company to do a study for that reorganization. It was called the Coopers and Lybrand study, and of course, like all studies, it was totally bullshit. It was nothing. It was a waste. The reason I remember it so vividly was I had to go before the council because when they studied the fire department, they recommended the elimination of 2 jobs. One was the ladder man who used to maintain the ladders, and in that case, actually, see, as soon as we...
There we are. There's our siren. Didn't we know it was going to happen?
And actually, we can barely hear it now. So
yeah, now we can barely hear it.
So the ladder man, in that case, it was actually fairly accurate because at the time we had virtually no wooden ladders anymore.
Right.
We had gone to aluminum ladders. We had some wooden, what they call banger ladders, which are 50-footers, but those needed, relatively, easy maintenance. They weren't used that often. You could just, and the other job was one of the deputy chief's jobs. But the other thing that I went in front of the council about was the fact that they also recommended, knowing absolutely nothing about fire protection, that the fire department have lower manning in the evening than they did during the day.
I remember that.
And their justification was, well, they have more calls during the day, which is true. Because during the day you have car fires, dumpster fires, grass fires. And the only problem that they didn't do, and I had to go before the council to blow that out of the water, was 95% of the large loss and fatal fires occur at night because they go undetected.
Correct.
So you actually need more people at night. If you were going to say which shift do you need more people, it would be the place where you have most of the large loss fires and the fatal fires and rescue operations that have to be performed. So, but the Coopers and Liebert study resulted in a whole bunch of department heads getting huge pay raises, because what they did was they said, oh, the DCM guy has to have a civil engineering degree, and he has to have this, and he has to have that, and we got to give him a lot more money because he has to have all these qualifications. And we're going to revamp this, and we're going to put all these other things in place, which are all jobs for their friends. But then what they did was, like they did with the ordinance for people who get hired in Fall River to live in a city, they totally ignored it.
Of course.
The DCM guy that got hired didn't have any of the stuff. They kept the DCM guy who was already there, who had none of the degrees in there, and they have never since done that. This is the problem with these reorganizations. All they are is justification for these people. And the other big thing, which irony, it's like karma. It looks like God's on our side all the time. These things happen like spontaneously. We had no idea when we heard about this reorganization a day or so ago. We just got a text this morning about New Bedford trying to take their fire chief out of civil service.
Right.
That's the thing that was the other thing that happened when they did the reorganization. They got all the department heads except the fire department, because I fought my butt off to keep it in civil service, saying that we cannot have public safety department heads appointed by politicians, because then they're beholden to the mayor who gave them their job, not to public safety. They have to be able to say, no, you're wrong, Mr. Mayor, I need more people, and they won't do that in most cases. And Leo Stapleton of Boston was a classic example. When they cut his manpower, he went in and called a press conference and said, if you do this, we're not gonna go in any buildings. We're gonna stand outside and just protect the exposures and let that building burn to the ground, and you're gonna lose the taxes, because I don't have enough men to initiate an interior fire attack. And of course, he got his men back. But they got all those department heads out. And then Fall River tried it later on. We all know what happened with the Mike Coogan incident.
That's right.
The Mike Coogan incident, that he jumped, couldn't make captain, couldn't get a high enough mark to ever make captain, but he was gonna jump from lieutenant over all the people who had seniority from him as a lieutenant, as captains, as district chiefs, as deputy chiefs, and become the chief of the department. Where the only thing he ever ran was a dumpster fire, and I wrote an extensive letter articulating why he or anybody else should not go from lieutenant to chief of the department. But this is what happens. The mayor of New Bedford wants to politically appoint a fire chief, so he will side with him when he jeopardizes public safety. And shame on New Bedford if they let this happen. Shame on New Bedford if they don't bring up what happened in Fall River. There was a real life example of what happens when you take public safety and let politicians get their fingers on that appointment.
I agree. I agree. And, you know, I've been an advocate for this since we took the police chief out of civil service. I still believe we should keep the police chief in civil service, because it takes the politics out of the game.
Yep.
And then the police chief isn't beholden to the administration. And when you're beholden to your boss for your job, you don't do anything to step on any toes. Sometimes, as a police chief or as a fire chief, you need to step on some toes.
Yeah, Leo Stapleton was the best example of that. And even with that, I'm not going to say that people don't, they can appoint from the top three. They'll get somebody that's a little bit favorable, but then of course it's got to be the individual. Does he have the courage to stand up for public safety rather than his own contract? But the great thing is that con they always uses, they can't get rid of these people. That's absolutely not true. All you got to do is look up the Civil Service Disciplinary, Chapter 31, Sections 41 through 45. It gives you the complete procedure to discipline and terminate any civil service employee. The problem that politicians hate about civil service is, in order to get rid of somebody, they actually have to do something that is wrong, not follow their political orders. So in other words, if a fire chief stands up for what's right, or a police chief stands up for what's right, if he stands up and says, this is not right, this is wrong, you can't fire him because he opposed the mayor. If he can prove that his position was based on professional standards, you can't get rid of him, and that's why they hate it. You remember Frank Manning from DC, from Department of Public Works at the time? Frank Manning used to go in there and go hammer and tong with the city council and the mayor. He'd tell them, no, absolutely not. And what would happen? They'd have to relent because they couldn't get rid of him, man. He was a civil servant, and what he was saying was right. It was in the best interest of the services to the people and to the city. But he wouldn't do what the politicians wanted him to do. He did what he felt was right as a department head. And if he was wrong, they would have terminated him, but he wasn't. This is the problem. Again, it's politicians trying to get their mitts and fingers into it again. And it's not, the irony isn't lost here. When Paul Coogan became mayor again, he brought the entire 1980s and 90s of Viveris back into the city of Fall River. We see people that we haven't seen since that administration. Between that administration and the Lambert administration, I mean, we've got all the people from that. So unfortunately, there are a few of us around that still remember the last reorganization. And let me tell you something. These reorganizations are full of baloney. We don't need a reorganization. We never needed a reorganization. You got a department head in every department. If you hold that department head's feet to the fire, make him do his job for his six-figure salary, we do not need CFOs. We do not need all this stuff. Every single department in this city has a department head. It is his job to create the budget for that department and to run that department within the parameters of a collective bargaining agreement and his duties and responsibilities. This is government at its most political. Reorganizations in government do not ever help people that pay taxes.
You know, I called a city councilor on this issue, and I asked, do you know for sure if on the agenda for next Tuesday's meeting, if there's going to be a mayoral proposal for a reorganization of some type of government? And the city council said, while I don't know that for a fact, I wouldn't put a bet on it. And I said, okay. I said, so we're probably looking at that. I said, you do realize reorganizations do not save us money? And the city council said, no, it's going to cost us more.
Yeah, of course it is. That's their objective. Right. And objective is to get their friends and tailor jobs to bring in service. But
we're screaming we can't afford it.
But exactly. But they'll say, oh, down the road it's going to save money. Don't worry about it. This is bull. Down the road is baloney. That's the promise. That goes along in the same file as the checks in the mail. That's not happening. It's not happening. Because let me tell you something. They will not ever do anything that hurts them politically. As a matter of fact, what the city councilor should ask at that meeting is, are we going to police this new organization of the city as well as we've policed the ordinance to have every hire live in the city of Fall River? Do you think the two people that got dragged over from Seekonk by their town administrator and got a job in Fall River, you think they moved to Fall River? I don't think so. This is our buddy from, where's he live? Fairhaven, Asona, Acushnet, somewhere. Marion or whatever that.
Yeah.
Somewhere, but I know one thing, it doesn't start with an F.
That's right.
Yeah, what he did to Fall River starts with an F.
I was going to say.
Exactly. Exactly. What he did. And he's still hiding somewhere.
That's right.
They moved him out of a position that was
public.
You notice.
Yeah.
You moved him on a position that could change if a new mayor got in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they do at the end. Then they slide them somewhere where now they're just a regular worker. So now they can stay forever and get a pension and never live in the city of Fall River, never shop in the city of Fall River, never buy anything in the city of Fall River, don't contribute anything to the economy of Fall River, but we'll go back to Seekonk, we'll go back to Marion, we'll go back to wherever the hell they live. And where they don't live is Fall River. So you know something, City Council? When are you going to start demanding that this ordinance is adhered to? When are you going to begin to say, they don't move in the city, I want a list of everybody who you hired in the past 4 years and where they live, where they vote, where they own a house. And if they don't live in Fall River, we give them 6 months to move in or they're terminated.
Hey, I have no problem with that.
But
None
no,
whatsoever.
they won't do that. Are you kidding?
Some political favor will be shot down.
That's right. You know, and one of, you know, and they say, well, it shouldn't be a big deal. Some other administration put some of these people on. No, that's not the way it works. Because once you stop it, that means you can't do it anymore, and the next guy can't do it anymore. And when the next guy calls and says, "Oh, by the way, I got somebody that's a friend of mine. You think you got a place for him?" Because that's the way politics works. It doesn't work for the benefit of the taxpayer. Nothing ever works for the taxpayer. You know, we are nothing more than giant ATM machines that they don't care about. And this reorganization, regardless of what it is, I will guarantee you, I'm a betting man, I'll bet a coffee with the mayor that this does not help the city at all. Because everything they say fundamentally is a lie about what's going to happen down the road.
Well, as I've always said, even on this show, politics comes from two words. Poly meaning many, and ticks meaning bloodsuckers.
That's right. Very, very good definition of that. I like the way you broke that one down, CJ.
Yep. Poly meaning many, ticks meaning bloodsuckers. And that's what we get with every politician.
And you know, it doesn't stop there. I mean, we're saying this reorganization, it may or may not happen. Who knows? But just at least it's nice to give the people some background, some history, that this has been done before. This isn't like where we just invented the wheel. You know, hallelujah, this is going to fix Fall River. It didn't fix Fall River when it was done before, and the reorganization was, by the way, when the city administrator's position was created.
It was created.
That's right, with Alan Silva. Mm-hmm. But let's look at down the road. Kind of little apples and oranges, but it's fundamentally the same. It has a core issue, as we would hear from Washington. Let's get to the core. This morning on television, Providence, their retirement system is in the toilet.
That's why they've been talking about taking out a bond to
It is in the toilet. They're only 24% funded, which is near bankruptcy. But at least I got to give them credit. They admitted it. Not like Fall River did from 02 to 12 when they didn't fund our system and almost tanked it, and we're starting to claw our way back because, you know, there's some new sheriffs in town. But they admitted that they underfunded it. They kept the money and spent it when they knew they were not paying enough. And let me just make this clear, because then people will say, well, our retirement system is not the same. You know, underfunding results in a weak system, underfunded system, and possibly bankrupt system, no matter where it is. But the Rhode Island pension system, amazingly enough, is like one of the worst in the country. Not you know, it's not a surprise that Rhode Island, being Rhode Island, that some people think is one of the most corrupt states, if not the most corrupt state in the Union, because the pension systems in Rhode Island are run by the individual cities and towns. So what happened in Providence was every mayor got all his friends, gave them all big paying jobs, gave them early retirements, gave them all kinds of stuff, and they all got giant pensions, and they never funded them. So now here we are 2 decades later down the road, and the system's in a tank. They wanted to borrow $800 million They have to go in front of the state, even though it's their system, to get authorization. But I think that the state has knocked it down to 500 million, and they're in talks to it. But again, it shows how government has a total disregard, because you know who gets hurt with this stuff? It's the average worker in Rhode Island. It's the average worker in Massachusetts. Our system is, it's overseen by the state. Over there, it's individual. Providence, just completely. But it's not the only. There was a town a while back, a long while, but I got a good memory, that basically retired virtually their entire fire department early. They gave them all early retirement so they could rehire people on the fire department. And it was like, really? How are you going to fund this stuff? You're going to let people off 10 years early, 15 years early? And you got to pay for these people. And this is the problem. The problem is that they don't care, because they kick the can down the road. And what's happening now is, now Providence is in a situation where the city might go belly up. But unlike here, where they always blame the system, there's nothing wrong with the system. Everybody that works in the system pays their share. It's the politicians that destroy retirements, just like it's politicians that destroy health care, just like it's politicians who destroy your bank account. The problem is that government does not know how to control its spending, and the only way to get it to control its spending is to elect people who will sit in your council, be your mayor, who care about you, the people of Fall River. Then that's the bottom line.
Yeah, well, there's no question about it. And when we look at this, and I've said this to a friend of mine is a retiree in Rhode Island, and his difference is his pension system is run by the state.
Yeah.
But it was a pain to get his paperwork done and everything. And when they said to him, and I couldn't believe they said this to him, don't worry about it, you have a fallback position because you're eligible for your Social Security. See, in Massachusetts, they're not eligible for Social Security. In Rhode Island, they still are because they pay into Social Security. Yeah. And they don't get an offset because they pay into the Social Security. Like here in Massachusetts, if you do qualify for some Social Security money and you're receiving a state pension, you have to pay an offset. You got to give back some money to Social Security. In Rhode Island, they don't do that. But that shouldn't be what they have to depend on. They're paying into a pension system. Okay, that money should be there for them. But if it's not, hey, don't worry about it. You got Social Security.
Yeah, well, therein lies the problem, CJ. The problem is that the retirement system is also class warfare. People like Billy Bolger retire. He was a senator making $80,000. He becomes the president of UMass, and now he's got a $300,000 pension. $300,000 retired. This is what he makes, over $250,000. Not the person that's a clerk in City Hall that's living on $22,000 a year. It's the regular people that always get the giant crap ball in the face, because those are the people that suffer. Because, look, the high-paying people get good pensions. They'll have to live to maybe 150 to outlive their pension. But people go, oh, you guys got a great pension system, but not if you live long enough. If you're a regular worker and you retire and you're fortunate enough, or maybe in some cases unfortunate enough, to live a long time, and you can't get less than $1 a day right now in this city, $360. That's the maximum amount they can elevate your pension.
And they fight you on it.
And they fight you on it. That's right, they fight you. And it's capped. So now every time you look, it's like now, the estimates were $5,000 a year more due to, now it's even more. It's beginning to even go up more.
Right.
It could end up to nearly $10,000 a year more that's being eroded from your pension. Now think about that fact. Somebody living on a $22,000 or $23,000 a year pension gross. That's not what clear. That's a gross pension. taking $10,000 away from that pension, $22,000, that's the median pension in the city of Fall River. Not for the people that retire and get $140,000, $130,000. There are a few of those, but they're not the majority. But I've got people that are 90 years old, retired when they were 65, been retired almost 30 years, and they're living on nothing. Imagine what's going to happen now with inflation. $10,000 out of a $22,000 pension, that gives you $250 a week to pay your gas, your electric, your taxes. They can't do it. They can't do it. It is grossly unfair. Because these are the people who actually went to work every day and did work. Didn't walk around City Hall with their hands in their pockets, going out to lunch every day and talking about, how they could give themselves a pay raise or what other part of their crew they can bring in and give a job to. These are the people that went in every day and did their job. These are the people that went in, whether they're police officers, and went out into the streets, firefighters going into buildings, DCM, doing the work of the city. Clerks there collecting your paycheck, and they're not making a lot of money. They're not making a lot of money, and if they live long enough, they're going to be broke. But this shows the insensitivity of government at every level. No, they do not care about poor people. They do not care about the average person. This reorganization, if it comes, I can't wait to see it, because I'm going to really look at this one with a magnifying glass.
Yeah, I say the same thing. I want to look at this because, again, if we're already hearing about people being brought back from another community.
Yeah.
Okay? This tells me that there's something in the works here that we may not like. I shouldn't say we may not like. We won't like. We know that.
Well, a lot of them come migrating back because they like the health care here. We have a few people who had options to take their pension at the state, county, or municipal, and they took it in Fall River. The reason they took it in Fall River is because we have a very good health care plan.
Right.
And look, it's not inexpensive because no health care is, but by the norms, it is inexpensive to care. What else is in other communities? Co-pays and stuff like that are far less for drugs and stuff because we negotiated that and we worked hard in this city on the health care. But all of a sudden you look and they come into our system. They had the option of going to, but they didn't want to pay $165 for a prescription where if they come to the city, they're going to pay $50. No, they don't want to do that. They retired through Fall River, and we have a few people who have done that, and that's their option. It's their statutorily, they can do that. So, but, this is the whole thing. Just remember the thing. It's the people that need it the most that are hurt the most when this stuff happens. Don't, start, and those people are going to rise up. They're too busy trying to, survive. But they've got to get to the polls, and we've got an election in 2 years, so in a year, well, not 2 now, but getting closer to a year. But we're on our way. But we've got to get people in there who are going to pay attention to what's going to happen to us. So let's keep a close eye. This is very interesting.
It's going to be very interesting, and we'll have to see what happens. I'll tell you now, it's going to be interesting to see how the city council handles it. I mean, we know there's already 5 votes for the mayor. Okay, or allegedly 5 votes for the mayor. It's actually 4 and a flip vote, as I call it. And we know that there's 4 people that are probably not going to vote for something like that, and are tax, defenders. They don't want to see the money spent frivolously. They don't want to see the money spent ridiculously, and that's what we need. We need more politicians that protect the taxpayer and not protect the politician. And that's what happens here in Fall River. We protect the politician, and we can't do that. Well, that's it for today. At least we didn't hear a loud siren. I want to thank our producer today. He had dual duty, so he did a great job. Remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend.